Now, I don't play many turn-based RPGs, and if memory serves me correct, this is only the third one I've beaten in my entire life. So with that said, shout outs to Lurk It, solo developer Sam Enright, and publisher United Label. For the codes, let's talk about Beyond Galaxyland. Now, Beyond Galaxyland is a sci-fi 2.5D turn-based adventure RPG where you play as the homie Doug, who finds himself in the world of Galaxyland, and he's trying to get back to Earth to save it because allegedly Earth got taken up out of the paint. Allegedly Earth is gone. But you'll get to see how that unfolds, and accompanying him on his journey is his talking guinea pig, Boom Boom, the MVP. Shouts to Boom Boom. But you'll get to see why the guinea pig is talking. And of course, you're going to meet a lot of other different characters along the journey. And since the story is a huge part of this experience, I don't want to get into specifics about what happens, but just know that all of the ingredients that I feel like you need for an enjoyable sci-fi adventure, I feel like all of the elements are here. The world is decently sized. You're going to get to go to a lot of different planets, and every planet kind of has its own unique feel. The planets have their own unique enemies and unique people to meet, and through just adventuring and doing a lot of the side quests, you'll get to see kind of like the individual kind of stories about each planet, and it kind of makes the world feel full and give it a lot of personality, because you could kind of get to see a lot of these little subplots throughout Galaxyland kind of unfold on the individual planets, and I thought that was a really nice touch. And like I said, while you're doing side quests and you're unraveling these subplots, and you're just kind of getting more context to the world. And I wouldn't say the story really breaks the mold or does anything crazy that you haven't seen before, but I think the characters have enough personality. It's got humor, it's got emotion, nothing crazy. It kind of reminds me like a 90s sci-fi movie with some teenagers, kind of that kind of vibe that you're going on. But I think it did enough to keep things interesting, especially with just the different kinds of people that you meet. All kinds of, there's a giant sloth in here. Like, there's so many just different kinds of creatures. Shout out to Big Juju and Lil Red. You'll find out who they are. But shout outs to the homies. And the soundtrack is fire. Gotta have a good soundtrack if we're gonna be out here adventuring, going to different planets. Soundtrack really matches the game. And shout outs to the developer Sam Enright, who I believe is a music producer, so that makes sense as to why the soundtrack hits the way it does. But gameplay wise, as I mentioned earlier, this is a turn-based game, but it's more so active turn-based. So you can of course do standard attacks. You can also choose how many times you swing, which I thought was pretty interesting. And you can defend against attacks if you time a button press right. And they also have special moves that you can pull off with an AP meter, and the AP meter is actually shared amongst the whole party, so that kind of keeps you from just spamming special moves. You kind of need to be strategic about how you use the meter, since everybody in the party has to share it. And one of the coolest features in this entire game is that you can capture enemies and use them as summons, like Pokemon. Like you can straight up just capture the people you fight. And this isn't limited to just regular enemies. There are even some bosses that you can capture and use as summons. Now, the bosses are harder to catch. It may take you multiple attempts, but it can be done. And it's kind of cool because, like Pokemon, different enemies are stronger against certain types, so you can kind of experiment and see what enemies are strong against others in terms of summoning. And every character in your party has a certain amount of summons that they can use. I want to say everybody can summon 4, if I remember correctly. I think everybody can summon at least 4 creatures to help them in battle. And the summons, they all have their different abilities. Some of them are just like brute force. Some of them are really strong. Some of them do things like increase the party's haste, or some of them are healers. All the creatures and the summons have their own kind of benefits, so you'll kind of get the mix and match and see how that works out. And you also, as you're traveling, you're going to be finding items that give you like passive upgrades, things like increasing your accuracy, of course finding things like potions and refilling the SP. But you also find, like I said, things like increasing accuracy or increasing defense, a decent amount of items that you can find while you're out and about. Either find them out and about, or you can purchase them at like merchant shops and things of that nature. And aside from the fighting and adventuring. You're going to be doing some light puzzle solving. They have racing segments in here. You're going to be doing some platforming, and just doing adventuring, man. It's a nice sci-fi adventure, and you're going to get all of those elements of being able to just go out and be free to a certain extent. And like I said, just visit different planets and just kind of just get involved, do side quests, just really engulf yourself in the world. And I thought for the most part, man, this really hit for me. Like I said, as somebody who doesn't play a lot of these kinds of games, I found a lot of enjoyment in this. So I think people who are actually big RPG fans, I think you guys will find something here to enjoy. Now, even with the positives, I think there are some negatives of Beyond Galaxyland that I do have to mention. As I said earlier, there were racing segments, and I did appreciate that the racing segments were here, but the racing itself to me just didn't feel that great. Now, this isn't a huge knock because there aren't that many racing segments, but I don't know, it just didn't feel great to me. But I was glad it was there. It was something different to kind of break up the normal gameplay, so I can appreciate it for that. But I just wish it felt a little better. There are some frame drops that you're gonna have to deal with. Anytime you're in a planet that has a lot going on in the background, and there are a lot of different kinds of planets. You got planets that are just like, they look more lush. You got planets that look like barren and desert. You got some cold and frozen planets. But if a planet has a lot going on in the background, chances are the frames will drop. For example, there's a planet earlier in the game where there's a lot of water in the background, and you're gonna notice the frame drops. Once again, not a game-breaking thing, but is something I have to mention. Another slight negative. This didn't really bother me that much, but this game doesn't autosave. You have to save at save points, but I feel like the save points are spread out pretty fairly in all of the planets. You may have an instance or two where you died and you got to go back a little bit, but I feel like that didn't happen to me that often. But yeah, just know I just had to throw this in there because for some people maybe this might not be a deal breaker, but something worth mentioning that there is no autosave. You do have to save at save points. And I would say the last negative would be the ending, which I of course will not spoil. But I do feel like with all of the adventuring we did and the way things were building up, I was expecting more from the ending, and I just didn't get it. that kind of hurt a little bit. I wish this ending just hit a little more, but yeah, they didn't stick the landing as well as I hoped they would. But it wasn't a deal breaker, but I definitely got to dock some points for it, especially considering how much we were building up to get to the ending. And then when you got to the ending, it was like, that could have been a little better. But even still, I did enjoy this game, so I wanted to put this on people's radar. So yeah, this is Beyond Galaxyland, man. Overall, still a pretty dope turn-based RPG with nice sci-fi vibes, a great look. Love the pixel art. I think this game has a lot of positives going for it. A few negatives here and there, and an ending that maybe could have been better, but I still think it's worth your time. And this game doesn't waste your time. It's an RPG, but I finished this in like 15 hours. And I would say if you want to go do all of the side quests, at most you're looking at 20 to 25. But yeah, for an RPG, not very long. You can kind of get in and finish this in a pretty respectable time. But yeah, just wanted to put this on people's radars. This is Beyond Galaxyland. Let me know how you feel about this game in the comments. If you've played it, if you have not played it, let me know if you'd be interested in checking it out. But that is all I have for today's video. My name is Serial Sensei. Y'all stay safe, y'all stay hydrated, and I will catch y'all on the next video.